Surprisingly, the Beverly Hills Cop franchise would actually kick off with some turbulent beginnings from a concept that had actually been in the works since the late 70s when Jerry Bruckheimer would come up with this idea of a cop from East LA being transferred over to Beverly Hills. After several script revisions and a revolving door of potential leading stars, the first Beverly Hills Cop would be released in theaters with Eddie Murphy in the lead, and the result would be cinematic gold. We're going to look back at this franchise film by film, and I'll talk a little bit about my hopes for this new reboot, Axel F, coming soon to Netflix, so get comfortable because we're getting into it.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, what's up out there, guys? I hope you're all having a fantastic day today. If you are new to the channel, welcome to Movies Never Say Die. I'm Anthony DeJoya, and this is your home for 80s and 90s retro movie content. And today we're diving into really one of the iconic franchises from the 80s, led by a comedic legend that would all kick off with a little film called Beverly Hills Cop in 1984.
Jesus Christ.
The first Beverly Hills Cop would drop into theaters in December of '84, directed by Martin Brest and produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer. The film had a modest budget of $14 million, and it would go on to amass a worldwide box office total of more than $316.3 million, proving the film was a hit and that Eddie Murphy's star power was in certified A-list form, which earned him his $4 million paycheck. And Beverly Hills Cop would also break the 11-year record held by The Exorcist as the highest-grossing R-rated domestic film, and it would keep that record until The Matrix Reloaded would be released in 2003, which is pretty impressive when you think about it, considering the hits that would come out to close out the 80s and all the blockbusters that the 90s would provide. The premise or the central plot for this movie is relatively simple, yet it's able to just blend great action and the comedic brilliance of Eddie Murphy together seamlessly, and that's why I think it was able to resonate so well with audiences. I think Murphy's Axel Foley feels like a very natural character. This makes Foley feel like a lived-in character, and him coming out to Beverly Hills from Detroit to find answers surrounding the murder of his friend is straightforward but effective. It's fish-out-of-water humor paired with 80s action tropes, and it just gels together flawlessly.
Yeah, Jenny, don't worry about me. We got cocaine and coffee here. We're gonna get wired and have a big party. Thanks for having me over, Vic. This is very nice.
And to me, Beverly Hills Cop is a movie that just has all of its elements stitched together just right to add maximum value to the film. The music is front and center, the pulse of everything. It's energetic, it's engaging, and the scoring really is able to just amp up the atmosphere of a given scene when needed, just like the songs in the soundtrack can get the mood and the energy amped up like the flip of a switch. And sure, paired with this is, as I said, a traditional but effective action movie plot. However, it's filled with a lot of likable characters, strong plot layering, and it's carried by a very swift moving pace. Judge Reinhold and John Astin are a perfect pairing with Murphy to, in my opinion, create a great, just comical trio of clashing personalities. And then on the villain side, you get Steven Berkoff, who is at just peak maniacal villainy with his smug arrogance. And then with the supporting cast, you get Lisa Eilbacher, Ronnie Cox, and Paul Reiser, and Bronson Pinchot, who all do elevate their smaller roles. And with a strong ensemble cast and great music and effective writing and Murphy's comedy, it's a no-brainer why this movie is such a revered classic. Because Murphy really is running at full speed on the humor, he, Reinhold, and Ashton together are a riot, and putting them on the case of this dirty art dealer is a great time. I think the humor really hits, from Murphy's delivery of dialogue to situational laughs and plenty of smaller sight gags. The comedy in this movie, I think, has plenty of variety to it, and when it closes out, the film's able to move right over into just textbook 80s gunplay and action and violence with the satisfying trademark 80s movie showdown to kind of just put the final stamp of approval on everything.
Jesus Christ.
3 years would pass after the first film before the Beverly Hills sequel would drop in '87, and it would command the summer box office. It was reported that executives had greenlit a sequel immediately after the first test screening of Beverly Hills Cop, and with part 2, they inflated the budget up to $27 million. They brought in Tony Scott, fresh off his mega hit Top Gun, to direct. Beverly Hills Cop would land into theaters on May of 1987 and would pull in just under $300 million at the global box office.
Get the fuck fuck out of here.
No, I cannot. It's serious.
Now, as you would expect, under the direction of Tony Scott, there is an amped up style and sleekness to Beverly Hills Cop 2 that I think just makes it feel like a bigger and grander movie than it really is. I just love the atmosphere this sequel delivers while still being able to kind of fit into the same feeling and world and vibe as the first film. There's still plenty of Eddie Murphy charm, and I think the comedic banter between he, Reinhold, and Ashton is back nicely. The plot of avenging the attack of Chief Bogomil is perfect revenge fuel, and with Scott behind the camera, the action feels bigger and more elaborate and much more intense. And overall, I think there's just an entertaining balance in this sequel between it being a Tony Scott film and an Eddie Murphy action comedy. Jürgen Prochnow and Brigitte Nielsen as the villains are excellently cast, in my opinion. I think Prochnow just has a menacing demeanor that's really perfect for an 80s action movie bad guy, and a sexy 6-foot-tall blonde taking people out with no hesitation is peak 80s action attitude. There's also more backdrop given to Ashton and Reinhold's Taggart and Rosewood, which is fun, particularly from Rosewood, who goes full-on Dirty Harry mode in the finale to truly comical results. The music is still very much solidified as the heartbeat of the entire film, and with the humor still very much in place and the action nicely elevated, there's plenty of substance to warrant the existence of this sequel that admittedly does repeat the first film's successes, but still manages to bring enough style and ambition of its own to the plate to make it a quality action thriller with a steady stream of laughs, plenty of full-throttle violence, and endless buddy charm. So I think it is commendable that this sequel to what should have been a flash in the pan action comedy was actually able to come in, repeat its successes, while also creating new heights for this world, all the while fitting nicely inside the same tone of the first movie.
Jesus Christ.
7 years would pass with zero signs of the antics of Axel Foley, but that would change in 1994 when one of the most oddly conceived franchise sequels of all time would be released in the form of Beverly Hills Cop 3. Eddie Murphy Productions would produce the film, Stephen E. D'Souza would write the script, and this time around, Murphy would also be reunited with his Trading Places and Coming to America director John Landis, so everybody would assume that this would be another can't-miss win at the box office, but that sadly would not be the case.
Get the fuck out of here.
Beverly Hills Cop 3, with its hefty $70 million budget, $15 million going to Murphy's paycheck, would drop into theaters in May of 1994, and it would be a colossal failure and a franchise killer for 30 years. Cop 3 would open with a meager $12.4 million its opening weekend. It would be beat out by the live-action Flintstone movie and would go on to just stumble at the box office, pulling in just $119.2 million worldwide, which was roughly $185 million less than the average grosses of the first two films. And I really have no idea what they were attempting to accomplish, but whatever it was, the result was a complete miss. When this movie opens with a raid on a warehouse and the guys are singing and dancing to the Supremes, you can already tell that there is a lot of trouble looming in the air. The juvenile tone of this entire film is bizarre. It goes from silly and dumb to wanting to be emotional and serious within seconds, and this roller coaster tone is more extreme than any ride in this amusement park setting that should have had plenty of potential for action and comedy. It's just that the overall mood of the comedy is so overtly kiddish, yet the violence and the language are kind of themed towards adults, and this is one of those movies that's just so bad it's sort of good in a train wreck sort of way. Now, I will admit there are some comical sections to this movie, but there are not nearly enough of them. John Ashton sat this one out, but Hector Elizondo does have his moments. I enjoy him as an actor, as does Reinhold, who returns as Rosewood. Even Bronson Pinchot returns as Surge in a cameo that could potentially be the true highlight of this misguided film that really shed Foley of his snarky personality and just replaced it with Murphy at 50% speed and on cruise control throughout. The story is a bit too absurd, the action set pieces are ridiculous, the sequence where Foley saves the kids on the malfunctioning ride is just peak physics nonsense, and really this whole movie just kind of feels like a comical parody of itself. As I said, some of the humor works, and this movie is easy to sit back with friends and laugh at while kind of tearing it apart, but the logic behind this movie is perplexing because it's rare such a globally known IP with a proven box office success has fumbled the bag as hard as Beverly Hills Cop 3 did by delivering this bizarro version of the wisecracking cop we know and love and having him working on a contrived as case as one could possibly find. Now that wraps up my little look back at the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. Now for this Axel F coming to Netflix, I would say you'd have to be in a bit of denial if you weren't a little worried about this movie, because I certainly have my doubts. First and foremost being Eddie Murphy. Now I'm sure that he can deliver an amusing performance. I'm just kind of worried that this character won't feel much like Axel Foley as much as it'll feel like Murphy being himself, sort of like his performance was in Cop 3. Now, I will admit the cast does have me optimistic. Reinhold returns for the 4th time. We also get Bronson Pinchot back as Surge. Hopefully, he'll have his own art gallery somewhere on Rodeo Drive. I also like to see Reiser back in his role, and certainly John Ashton coming back to reunite the trio from the first 2 is a huge bonus. So, like many of these rebootquels, I have no doubt there will be some fun nostalgia. I also really like the casting of Gordon Levitt as a detective. I like Taylor Page coming in as Foley's daughter. I've seen her in a few films and I think she's a great actor. Plus, Kevin Bacon is in this one as well as the captain, and everything is better with a side of bacon. So I do think this ensemble cast of actors has the potential to pump some life, charisma, and humor into these characters if the story really allows them to. And that is my main concern. Will Axel F take itself seriously, know its target audience, and deliver a well-crafted story that can bring the franchise back to the atmosphere of the first 2? That's my main concern, that it just won't, and that it will try to appeal to way too many demographics, and that much of the core audience is going to be fed nostalgia as the main course, while the rest of the film kind of feels like another assembly line Netflix film with childish humor. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this movie gives me all the feels and that I have a great time with it. It does feel criminal not being able to watch this movie on the big screen. It's a huge bummer, but I'm going to check it out regardless. Let me know if you guys want me to do a quick review of it. I used to be an actual film critic as recently as a few months ago, so I'd love to put together a review on Axel F if you guys are interested. Also, are you going to see Axel F? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this revisiting of the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. I have another volume of my forgotten 80s movie series coming soon. Be on the lookout for that. I hope to see you guys all for that next volume, and until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?